So that means I got to switch the shot.
Ooh, fancy. Look at
Ooh,
that.
fancy. How about that, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
You know, the funny thing is, I think my head is this much bigger than yours.
Probably is. Ooh, maybe I could do
Yeah.
a color correction here, and I could add a little more saturation.
To you or to me?
To me.
All right, you're a little pink.
I
You're a
could
little
probably
pinker now.
remove some from you. Yeah, I'm a little pinker
Yeah,
now, but I'm
kinda
not sure I
literally.
like pink.
I shifted the lights up to 5,000 Kelvin to try and get a little less red, but
Let me
it looks like
let me do that.
tan. What's up with that?
There you go.
Okay. Hey, nicely done.
That's a little better. Thank you.
Yeah.
To answer the question about vMix, vMix does have local recording, but we wanted to have an insurance policy. All right, you ready? All right,
I'm ready.
5 seconds of silence. And go. No.
Go.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Welcome back to .NET Rocks. This is Carl Franklin.
And this is Richard Campbell.
And it's show 1700, which we are actually recording with a group of people who have yet to come on, and we're streaming it live to our Patreons, our patrons, Patreon supporters. And everyone else can go watch it on YouTube after the fact with all the swear words in and nothing bleeped out and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
How are you,
we
man?
keep the podcast pretty tidy for various reasons, but
we do.
The video, we can do what we want, more or less. I'm great.
Exactly.
I've been doing the pandemic series on Run As Radio, and so 2 shows a week for Run As, the regular one and the pandemic one. Just great conversations. So I shot a bunch of shows before this, so I'm in the groove. I'm feeling it. But I have the important things. I have a bottle of whiskey.
I have a bottle of Dalmore 12.
I've got the Abunda. I went for the cast strength for 1700.
I remember being in Scotland with my friend Richard Campbell at this little, and I won't say it was little because it was kind of a big hotel, but it was this cozy room in Craigalatchie, which is right on the River Spey.
Yeah.
And they had a beautiful den-like environment, right? With booze. It
was exactly what you were looking for in a Scottish bar, right?
Yeah.
Like wood on the walls and the ceiling. Fireplace, the big overstuffed chairs, the 2 spaniels of the owners running around getting
exactly.
And every whiskey you've ever heard of.
Dalmore 12 was £5.
Yeah,
I remember that.
Cheers, brother.
So, cheers to you. Congratulations on 1700 shows. Can't believe it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should just get started then with a little thing I call Better Know Framework.
Hit me.
All right. Now, let me pull this up here, and then I'll get you. And now people can hear us and see this at the same time. So what I have today is jammer.net, JAMMR.net. And remember I was telling you I wanted a way. There isn't much interesting here, so I'll switch back. Remember I was telling you that I wanted a way. Yeah, you remember I was telling you that I wanted a way to figure out a way that people could play together online and hear each other with no latency and little latency, right? So I don't know if this is it, but people have told me, people whom I trust have told me that this is as close as it gets to real-time jamming on the internet. So
it's not that Apple software, it's somebody else.
Yeah, and it's free. Carl!
It's free software.
Carl! But Carl! I know Tim's going to give me some crap about that. So I plan to use it because my bass player is afraid to come to rehearsal. He's got, he's immunocompromised and he's got kids and a wife and he doesn't want to take any chances. So we need a way to sort of, play with him
you don't get
so that he
the
can.
speed of light. So is he just latent to it, but then inserted at the right time?
I have no idea how it works, actually. And when I pressed my friend who was telling me this is great and it works and everybody can just hear each other and it's fine, I'm asking, like, how do they get around the physical limitations of you can't just do 1, 2, 3, go and everybody hears everybody. It's just impossible.
No, that's not how the universe works.
Yeah. So we'll see.
All right. That's cool.
That's what I got, man. Who's talking to us today?
Grabbed a comment off of show 1100. So jump back 600 shows or so. February of 2015, where we made a show we called Making 1,000 Podcasts with Carl and Richard because we're bad at math.
Right.
We did 1,000 podcasts on show 1100. But actually, it was because I came on board as co-host on show 100. So it was 1,000 podcasts together.
Right.
More or less. There was a few bits and pieces there. And if you want to get technical, in that window, we also made 140 tablet shows and da-da-da-da-da. But don't get complicated. It was show 100. And mostly we talked about making podcasts, right? You know, today our process, well, up until the pandemic, our process was pretty stable. Since the pandemic, well, look at what we're doing right now, right? You've learned all this stuff. Heck, I've got a green screen now. Like, I've built out a studio like everybody else has. And so, but in January, when we were recording shows, they were not that different than the way we recorded them in 2015 when we talked about it on show 1100. But now things are very different. And the comment I grabbed, because there's a whole bunch, lots of them just saying thanks for making a lot of podcasts, which clearly we've done. But Bert McKay, and this is 5 years ago, said, love the show. Nice to hear about the hurdles you've encountered with auto quality and inputs over the years. I've been thinking about setting up a podcast of some sort for a while, but trying to find a topic that's unique, and that's a challenge unto itself. As a bit of a hobbyist and a generalist, I found myself with lots of old components and laptops sitting around. I've been running some live video streaming for the local roller derby league. Does Karen mention about this?
I know. I was going to say that's Karen's thing.
Yeah. The setup has been hacked together over the years and is continuously improving, and it is surprising what you can achieve with a laptop, a budget webcam, and some open source software. OBS looking at you. And what struck me with this is that I look around my office at the way we've been recording with like multiple old machines running their own Skype clients and then doing a mix minus into a board and things. It's like nobody sets out to build this. You just end up adding this and adding that. And it's like, oh, I'm not using the Telos anymore. I'll go this way. Like it keeps changing, right?
Yeah.
Now he's talking about recording roller derby. So he says, I'm trying to integrate so many features like a scoreboard, commentators, and replay video into one stream. It's been an interesting challenge, but I'm getting there. Thanks for all the great shows and for filling my bookmarks with new technology and development things to play with.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well,
that's
Bert,
awesome, man.
5 years on, we love your message, and a copy of Music to Code By is on its way to you. And if you'd like a copy of Music to Code By, write a comment on the website at .netrocks.com or on the social medias, because we publish every show to Facebook. And if you comment there and I read it on the show, we'll send you a copy of Music to Code By.
And definitely follow us on Twitter. I'm at Carl Franklin, and he is at Rich Campbell. Send us a tweet. Latency doesn't matter with Twitter.
Yeah,
so
it really doesn't.
We can all tweet simultaneously, and everybody's good. And now I would like to bring on the guests.
Woo-hoo. This was your idea, Carl.
Yes. Yeah, it was my idea to do it. Well, the live stream, we sort of thought together we should do this, but to pick the top 6 people in terms of how many times they've been on the show, that seemed like a good idea.
The question was like, who is that? Because we didn't actually know. And it's like, if only I could write a database query that could answer this question.
If only we had some technology.
If only there was some technology.
If only you knew how.
If only I knew how. What's an aggregate query?
So
anyway,
let me just rattle off the guests. Michele Bustamante is here. Rocky Lhotka is here. Billy Hollis is here. Kathleen Dollard is here. Senor Huckaby is here. And Mr. Haack is here. Welcome all you guys and gals.
MLB 23 shows.
Great to be here.
I did not know that.
Yeah, neither did we.
They flew by.
23.
23. How's that possible? How old am I? How old am I anyway? What the hell?
We've been doing this show for 18 fucking years.
18.
Yeah. So that means you do more than once a year on average there, Michele.
Yeah. That is pretty awesome. Thank you.
It is awesome. So before the show, Rocky called in early and Billy and Phil to sort of test their microphones. And we were talking about, the most memorable moment. And that got us to thinking about memorable moments in our careers. And one of my most, memorable moments was the day I learned to write the where clause first.
Writing it first. It's the order matters.
Yeah.
Right? If you write the where clause first, before you write the delete from clause part of it, and you just then if you accidentally there's not enough disk space for the recording. That's no good. I just ran out of recording space.
All right.
Then if you accidentally delete something, it's not going to be a problem. All right. So did everybody hear that? There's no more disk space on this virtual machine, so we are flying with your recordings only right now.
You mean the one that Kathleen isn't making? That one?
Kathleen, are you recording?
I'm trying. I've never tested this, so I am really unsure about whether or not it's going to record.
Okay,
I found something I could open and say it's recording, and it is bleeping like it is making. It has got a response to my voice. That's all I can say.
All right, then I have a solution. I'm going to delete.
I'm sorry.
Going to delete the recordings that I made, and then I'm going to go back and in the recording session, I'm only going to record Kathleen. So that way.
I'm so needy.
But you know what, Kathleen? There's a really positive thing to what you just said, and that is, at a minimum, your computer responds to your voice.
It does. It's just I just found something that said it could record, and that's about it. So yeah, I'm so sorry. I misread an email. It's my fault.
It's not totally okay.
Not Carl and Richard's fault. It's totally my fault. Yes,
it's all right. No problem.
Carl. Is Windows voice recorder good, people? Is that fine? Windows voice recorder?
Windows voice recorder?
That's what I'm using.
Yeah.
Is that fine?
Fine.
I think it should be fine.
Either...
This is John Anderson from Yes.
You're not supposed to say who it was. All right, so here we go. Let's get back into it. I'm recording Kathleen and Tim just because. All right?
Okay.
So that brings me to the question that I asked you all to think about. You've been on the show a number of times, obviously. What was your most memorable moment from .NET Rocks? 18 years of .NET Rocks. Michele, we'll start with you.
I still remember maybe one of our first shows when I was in my former house in my little office off our room, and it was evening recording, pretty sure. And you said, well, everybody, it's ladies' night tonight. And do you remember my response to you?
No.
Because I think you peed your pants laughing, but...
Sounds like me.
But I said, so what? Did you bring me a rose? And and that one moment, even though it may not be the most memorable technical discussion, your reaction to that was enough to make my day. That's like no holds barred. And the best titled show anywhere was Michele Bustamante Gets Hard on WCF.
It was Hard on Indigo. Hard on Indigo. Show 176.
That's it. Indigo.
Yeah. Oh my God. How do people remember this? Oh, I guess you look it up.
So
yeah.
My husband approved that title. He might have laughed.
He might have laughed.
Yeah.
That's funny. All
He
right,
might have
Rocky.
commented something back that I can't share, Anyway.
All right, Rocky. What do you got for a memory?
Well, I got nothing as good as that. I'm going to, but I was, and I don't know, it had to be maybe the second or third show that I was on, and I was in Boston for some work because Magenic has an office there. And you're like, hey, come on down, we can do a recording, and so as I recall it anyway, I drove down. Anyway, we were at your studio, and this was 15 years ago, I suppose, or something. But
before the renovation,
somewhere I had never been, so I got to visit the holy shrine of Carl, and all your musical equipment, and you were building out a sound booth at the time, or a soundproof couple rooms, and so I guess nothing funny, but for me that was a great deal of fun to see where the magic happens.
I remember What's that, Richard?
Recording in person too, which is very powerful.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah, it was fun.
Rocky, do you remember when we met each other walking across the Charles River in Boston?
Yeah.
You were with your family. Yeah.
Yeah, we were there at the time, essentially on holiday, and just walking around looking at museums. And my kids were both quite small at the time.
So were mine.
7 and 3, or I don't know.
I think we were taking my first daughter to the Children's Museum, which was just on the other side of the bridge.
Yeah, and we ended up there too, but not at the same time. But it was such a weird coincidence to be walking through a big city like Boston and then just go, hey, look at on the street, random. Yeah.
So I have
so you literally didn't know each other and you met on the street?
No, we knew each other. That's why it was fun.
Because that would have been a good one. Hey, I've seen you somewhere before. Wait, I've seen you somewhere before.
As Paul Simon says, hey, aren't we walking down the same street on the very same day? Anyway, so I also have a Boston memory, which is once I remember Chris Kinsman called me or emailed me and said, hey, I'm going to be in Boston. Do you want to go out to lunch? And I said, well, Boston's like 2 hours away. And he goes, oh, really? Because I look on the map and it looks like you're just like around the corner. It's that Mercator problem there. Yeah. All the New England states get squished together. Yeah. All right. That brings us to Billy Hollis. I know what it is. And Billy knows
you do, don't you? Yeah. Yeah, my most memorable moment was on stage in San Diego during the road show in 2010. And Tim, I think you were in the audience actually at that time. That was show number 545. So, and if someone wants to hear the whole moment, it's at the very beginning of show 600, where you sort of brought together shows from a series of 100. I was talking about some patterns and practices guys who were doing sessions on pair programming and unit testing and related stuff. And let's see if I can remember all of their recommendations. They recommended writing 3 lines of testing code for every line of production code. And of course, they were doing pair programming. And they recommended having 2 human testers for every developer. Does that sound about right, Carl?
Yep.
I think that was
that's what I remember.
I still think that's the best practice, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I was doing what I often do, which is push back on stuff that kind of sounds good to developers, but doesn't really fly in the real world.
The way you made your point was pretty eloquent.
Yeah, yes. Well, and see if I can remember now. So my summary comment was what I think, Carl, you almost fell out of your chair laughing at. See, what something like, God. If you have to have someone looking over your shoulder with every line of code you write, and you have to write 3 lines of testing code for every line of production code, and you need 4 testers, 2 each for you and your pair, to test everything you do, you must suck as a coder. And when I finished that line, Paul was just falling out of his chair. I believe your remark at that point was, go back to school.
the thing is that there's so much truth in there that, we overthink things and, certain technologies and practices work better with certain types of developers. Like, I don't remember who told me this, but it sort of rang true that all of that test-driven development and patterns and practices that you just mentioned there, Billy, is really good for sort of junior programmers, for people who aren't, or people who aren't up to speed on the system yet, who are going to make more mistakes. But, a guy like Billy or, any of you who are just writing an app, you probably don't need that kind of protection.
Well, so I have a comment about that. I think it depends on the size of the organization and what you're delivering to the cloud as well, right?
Michelle says size matters.
I do. Just put it right there.
Michelle is hard on
not. That's
No. Come on.
It's never going to go away, right? It's out there now.
Loves it, and she's going to laugh.
So, so size matters. So the size of the project matters. And I think that what I've learned over time with larger microservices deliveries is that, having so TDD is hard. Thinking test driven up front is a discipline. I think that's a cultural thing. You decide if that's what you're up for. But in general, unit testing everything you do as part of delivering something to done as you do your stories is a good practice. And then on top of that, there's other functional tests and such that should get into the pipeline. So that's how your pipelines are good. That's how you can go all the way to prod, CI/CD. And it's the only way to possibly know is to have coverage. So now we have numbers like 85% coverage that are hard to achieve. But if you have that, then you have some knowledge as an organization that what your team is doing with all these hundreds of people that work for you is doing the right thing and that it's auditable, because otherwise you look like, if you don't check those things and stuff falls through the cracks, then have you done everything you could for your customer, protecting their data and, making sure things work as they should, right? So I kind of feel like, when you're just a couple of devs, you're going to test your own stuff. That can be manual, that can be automated, it can be whatever it is, you're right. But at some point there's numbers that have to roll up, right? To somewhere that's accountable, somewhere that's a metric.
Fair enough.
Large projects, as soon as you're dealing with triple-digit developers on something,
right?
The possibility of nothing getting done, of unintegratable code, is so high. The fact that we would slow down the rate of code but increase the rate of correctness, it's hugely powerful. Right. We're in a different place then. We're throwing a lot of meat at the problem, so to speak.
But you're slowing things down too, right? Because now when you say, I'm done with that story, I finished my code. Now, am I really done? Can I really close the story? Did the unit test pass? Did I cover happy, unhappy pass? How many tests did I create? Is the coverage there? It's a lot of stuff. So now you're like, damn it, I just wanted to be done. Like, I finished my stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
But there's also the integration part of it, where like recently, wasn't it Boeing, I think, had the rocket that went up and then couldn't do anything once it got into space because they had never tested the launch part with the payload part. They never, both parts passed all their unit tests, but nobody had ever bothered to try and make them work together.
And then when they actually went back and looked, because now it was stranded and wasn't going to make it to the space station, they realized they had a critical integration error that would have resulted in loss of vehicle on reentry, and were able to fix it so that they got it back. But
which in itself is kind of incredible that they could do that.
Yeah, that they fixed it.
Like, if there's a place where you don't want to forget your integration test, it's when it's out in fucking space.
Yeah. And supposed to be
I'm just saying, four testers per developer probably is the right number.
There's a whole geek out there about how badly Boeing botched that. NASA put out a report today, the day we were reporting it, identifying 80 critical issues in the implementation. Like, imagine getting 80 P1s you didn't identify. That's not good. That's bad.
Well, Billy, let me ask you this. In your operation, how many people typically work on a single application?
Typically, teams run from 3 or 4 up to 8, 10, 12. 12 would be a large team for the kind of apps we produce.
Yeah, and when it started, you were mostly writing it yourself, right? Writing apps yourself.
Yeah, years ago, myself and my core team. But typically, it's 2, 3 people from our team, sometimes 4, and then an equal number or maybe a little more from the client team, because of course they've got to take care of it after we're gone. And when you're talking about that scale, talking about that many human testers is just unreal.
Yeah, you're right. So that explains a lot.
It's also worth mentioning that we do a lot of native client software, and while we do our unit testing on all the stateless web stuff, that's really what unit testing was created for, was for stateless code, and most of the microservices stuff is stateless code. So unit testing works really well there. It's not really the core of testing a native application that is very stateful. There are parts of it that you unit test, but the integration testing for a native app becomes a much higher profile than it does when you're testing server-based code.
Okay.
I do want to interject here, because somebody's going to quote me as being on the side of all that testing, but I'm actually just poking fun at Billy. I'm on Billy's side. I think, yes, some unit testing and integration testing and automated user acceptance testing, you have to have some level of all of those things. But there was that period, and I remember that because it was kind of an industry thing. It's like, oh, the standard is 2 testers per developer and all this other stuff. And that's just craziness. Who can afford... Like you're sitting in an office building, or now we're sitting in houses, but did we actually have paired carpenters? And for each carpenter, was there four city inspectors that came? I don't think so, right? None of us.
Where do you put that nail again?
Building.
Can you just look at me while I put that nail in there, like just to make sure I'm putting it in the right spot?
There was just a foreman who came by and go, "What are you doing? Hey, what's the matter?" Smack.
Oh, I've actually polled audiences about this at conference sessions. And I would ask an audience of 200, how many of you have a ratio of 2 testers per developer, 2 human testers per developer? And rarely would I get a single hand. I mean, that just isn't.
It's almost always none.
Right? Yeah.
I think it's also the shape of the team, right? Like there are people that think in a way where they will always be true testers to the core, right? That's how they think about a system. And then there's people who just are very full stack, but completists, right? Like they will do the unit tests themselves, build the functional tests. They can do a little bit of everything, even the SRE work, right? On a domain, if you think in a microservices, setup. So there are folks that maybe never want to be engineers. They don't want to code. They don't want to do all the other things. But there's others that literally, they just rather do everything full stack, right? And I don't know that you can have a one size fit all, even within one organization, right? You got to use people's gifts and put them where they can do their best, right? I don't know.
That's right. Before we continue on this conversation, which is really great, I want to give Kathleen, Tim, and Phil a chance to give us their most memorable moments of .NET Rocks history, starting with you, Kathleen Dollard.
Yeah.
First of all, how are you?
I'm great. This was really hard to think about, because it's like, I think back, and I did a show with one of my sons, at least one, and it was great. I've done some great panels. I've done some really stuff that, it was really heartfelt. And I visited your studio, Carl. We recorded in your studio. But I have to say that I'm going to kind of back up and explain why we were in your studio, which is that I got, after my first show, I said I would not record again unless it was in person, because the first show was memorable. Shall we say it was memorable for 2 reasons, both of which were interesting. Now, Richard can sit here and just kind of just sit back because he wasn't there. Rory was there. Nope. So this was a very early show.
Yeah, I remember.
You know where I'm going, right? Do you want me to skip the story?
No, this is a great story. love this.
So 2 things happened. I'll tell you the last thing is that I was incredibly naive. So this is it's my very first big interview. I'd written a book. And I actually thought you and Roy would have read the book. Now, just to make sure we have this in context, it was 800 pages of XSLT. Okay, so I totally get it. If you read that book cover to cover, please let me know. Okay, so to start with,
I did not.
I was totally floored by the fact I was having to explain things I didn't expect to, and so but that was after we started. And the way this started was back when there was more jokes. And there was less tech. And so Rory had found a piece of information. Which Michelle will appreciate, that he thought was really important to share. So as I'm waiting to go on, this is the conversation that's going on, which is, what animal has the longest penis?
All right, yeah. It was like a duck
so,
or something.
Hey,
Huckaby, you calm down.
And I am very, I've been in the world of mostly guys, my whole career, but it's like right. I'm aware of that. And here's this penis conversation going on. And by the way, it's a duck, which you wouldn't expect.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my first, and I was like, I just really, between those 2 things, I wound up doing my next 3 or 4 shows when I was able to hook up in person and do them in person, and they were much more comfortable. And I got my legs back underneath me, and now I've done a few more. So anyway, but that was
to treat you much more like a human being after that.
It wasn't against me. So there was no conversation with me. It was just prior to me coming on, there was a separate conversation that was not the one I would have chosen, which is say that. It wasn't my number one choice at that point.
Yeah, so, those were in our experimental days when we were going for funny and wacky, and we didn't have any censors.
Yeah. So hopefully we, I like where you settled. But anyway, so that is that's the story that is hard not to tell if I'm telling a .NET Rocks most memorable show.
Well, you wouldn't be the first one or the last one to be shocked by the content or the line of questions in the Rory years. Right, Richard?
Yeah, it was a little nutty back then. But
yeah, the Rory years were a little different.
That was the early days. That was the beginning of podcasting too. It's 2004.
Yeah.
And you were trying to invent a medium for the most part. But you and I had a conversation where I said, there's a Venn diagram here. On one circle, there are people who want a technical conversation. And the other one, there are people who want comedy and fun and music and so forth. And the intersection between the two, very small.
Very
small. Apart and made 2 shows.
Yeah. But
and that's what happened.
I will add that in terms of that Venn diagram is that my younger son, who grew up in a difficult household. So if you can imagine 2 Microsoft MVPs and an older brother who's a computer language savant, and here you are and you're 10 years old and you don't understand 2 words that ever get said at the dinner table. But he absolutely loved your comedy, and now he's a programmer. And so someplace in there, you made programming okay. And so I applaud you for that. And now he's a programmer working at a startup in Denver, and I'm incredibly proud of both my children, who have both happened to have followed my path most unexpectedly. One was going to be a mathematician, and one was going to be an astrophysicist, but they both code for a living.
I take full responsibility for the direction
success of Kathleen's sons.
No. Yeah, great. No, not at all. But from the very beginning of .NET Rocks, and even before that, I was most influenced by other programmers and other mentors who made learning really easy. Who didn't talk down to me, who didn't. Who like to lighten the load with a joke here and there, but were absolutely more than happy to share their knowledge and make you a better programmer. And they didn't shy away from explaining things that might be well known by the majority of the audience, but for the people who are just catching up, they wanted to, go over the basics and reiterate things. So I mean, that's been my sort of mantra, sort of bring information that's difficult into the realm of just being fun and human and all of that stuff. So sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. All right, Tim, what's your favorite moment from .NET Rocks history?
Unlike my dear friend Billy, I can't remember shit over all the shows I was on. I can only remember one time, and I think you guys remember this. You had a cancellation or something.
Tim, is it too much of this? Is that the?
Yeah, it could be. It could be. So I get a call from Richard or Carl, I don't even remember, and said, "Hey, we got a cancellation. Can you do the show?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm in Montana, and I'm on my way to go fly fishing. So if we could do it on my cell phone from the rental car, then okay." And Richard's like, "Yeah, sure. What the hell?" So it's a long story, and you guys know where I'm going, but it ends with me saying, well, Richard and Carl leading me into, "Hey, tell us a Bill Gates story." And I said, "Well, can you do the beep thing? Can you do like, doot, doot, doot? Because they all involve a shit ton of cussing, right?" And Carl's like, "Yeah, we can do the beep thing." But little did he know the story ends in like 30 F words in a row. So it ends with, "Hey, you three assholes. I know I told you to stand on that fucking piece of tape over there, but now I want you to stand on this fucking piece of tape, and if you don't fucking move, you're gonna fucking never work in this fucking industry again." And beep. So when the recording came out, it was one of the very few where I listened to myself, and you couldn't even hear what I was saying. It was just like beep 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 beep.
But the story was real. You were actually backstage at a Tech Ed or something with Bill Gates, and
it was the launch of Everett. It was the .NET
you were
launch.
doing a demo, and
and
basically you were standing with him and talking to him, and this little producer lady came over and told you to move to this fucking line right here, and you had to leave him.
Yeah, good times.
Talking to Bill, that's a no-no.
Yeah, you couldn't talk to Bill Gates, and we were screwing around, kidding around with Bill Gates, and they didn't like that. No one liked that, and the producers basically.
He likes tech people. He likes tech conversation. Like that's exactly what he wanted, right? Like he was enjoying himself.
Oh, totally. And we had killer demos. Yeah, just fantastic. And he wanted to know really what was going on behind the scenes and such. And it was, I didn't think any of it at the time. I was so young. I didn't think it was a big deal at all. It was so contrived and rehearsed, and there was no nervousness or anything like that, even though there's, 15,000 people in the audience and a gazillion watching live, on TV all over the world. It was just, I felt so bad for him after that his life was, so protected and so sterile. And I know his life is dramatically
with his reaction when they took you guys away from him, right?
So there's the story. It's me and two other guys who have the demos, and then Gates beeline. I get eye contact with him. He beelines straight for me, and he goes, "Hey guys, you nervous?" And I'm like, "Nervous? Like, Bill, we've been fucking rehearsing this for a fucking week, And he laughed and he said, This is what I'm not supposed to say, which I said on the show as I'm driving south to Yellowstone National Park. Gates said something to the effect, very close to quoting him. It's like, "Yeah, if I have to do the digital fucking decade fucking speech one more fucking time, I'm gonna fucking quit this job." And we just busted out laughing. We just were dying laughing. And that's what pissed off all the producer people and Gates' handler and all the sycophant VPs that are around, is they wanted him to focus on the digital decade speech. Yeah, good times.
Yeah. The share price.
You know what, Tim? I remember doing a 2-minute one piece of a PDC like keynote with Shuchuk. And I have never had to practice more for 2 fucking minutes than any other presentation to this day I've ever done. Like, it was like literally like a week of prep, and then like maybe 2 or 3 separate days of 2 to 3 hour like meetings. And then everybody had to go through their thing and you had your 2 minutes. Like, so imagine you're doing like this whole thing. How many times they made you practice? Yeah. Right.
And we were all,
like over and over again.
Yeah, and our demos were all shadows. They want to know
everything you're going to say, like every single thing you're going to say and everything you're going to do.
Within a 3-second time. So I had 3 minutes and 47 seconds for my demo. And I had 3 seconds either way. But what's super interesting is back then, you had someone shadowing your demo. So someone was backstage on a separate computer clicking as I'm clicking, just in case shit went down, and they would just switch to your backup.
Wow.
And you would just be pretending and talking.
That is the XP green blue screen reason, right? Like when the
it was the result of that. Yeah.
They still do it, by the way. When Dev Intersection hosted the Connect keynote, there were 37 demos in the Connect keynote, and that meant there were 37 people on 37 PCs in the backstage area, each one dedicated to one of the demos, and they would shadow as the demo was done, and if anything went wrong, there was somebody monitoring the flip at that moment. And then and you can see, I was sitting backstage while this was going on. If each demo's done, that person gets up and walks out, right? They're good.
Whose keynote was that, Richard?
That was the Connect
Are you allowed
keynote.
to tell us?
We hosted it. Wow, Guthrie was the overall runner at the keynote, right? But it was one of those. It was Connect, so it was like 3 hours.
Right.
It was a
well,
beast.
I mean, we've all bombed a demo on stage, right?
Yeah.
I bombed so many. I had Sinofsky.
Oh, God.
Remember that nice guy, Sinofsky? I had him breathing down my neck one time when I bombed a demo. Oh, God, it was awful. Awful.
Yeah.
That could be a whole show. Demos you bombed.
Well, Huck's got the the fake bottle of vodka, and he's going to show some alphabets, and if it crashes, I'm down in this bottle. And sure enough, it crashes.
Water.
Who would do that?
Who would do that? Nobody does that.
Who would do that, Carl?
Tim and I did that together in Poland, where he got a bottle of Jack Daniels filled with iced tea, and I got a bottle of vodka filled with water. And we because we thought we would shock them, right? Then we just started going, dunk, 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 dunk. And they're looking at us like, no. They were like, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Can I have some?
Lunch?
Yeah, that's lunch for us. Yeah. Well, that brings us to the last person who's been miraculously silent this whole time. And I'm sorry about that. Mr. Phil Haack, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Going back to the and tester conversation, if you notice here, my name is misspelled in Hacked LLC.
It is?
Yeah. Well, look at my last name and look at Hacked LLC.
Where's the quality control?
Yeah, you need. I think you need 2 testers for.
2 testers for every
podcaster.
All right, I will fix it. Sorry. So sorry.
That's okay.
It is. Holy crap, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Fix it live. There we go.
Good time repairs.
Yeah, that's right. That's something that our listening audience will not be privy to.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. You can fix that retroactively.
So, Phil, how the hell are you?
Listening. Yeah. I'm good. Let's see. My most memorable moment, I believe it was one of your .NET road shows where you were in a big-ass RV traveling across the country. And if I recall, you flew me down to LA for the to be the special guest in LA where I had used to live. And but I remember prior to the show, we went to, I think this was the same trip. We went to SpaceX because they love Richard, and we learned that they were a shop along with all the other stuff they do. So I got to tour SpaceX, and then when we
freaked that engineer out. I was asking too hard of questions, and he sort of looks at me and goes, "Who is it you work for exactly?"
Ryan, we got to see their titanium 3D printer.
Oh yeah, the laser sinter machine. That was episode 831, which we eventually titled, rather I titled, "A Very Hacky Christmas," because we published it on December 25th.
I remember holding up a piece of machined metal that looked like solid metal, and then you could see it had a honeycomb structure.
That was that piece of titanium.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's the only way they could make that with the laser sintering machine. It was amazing.
Yeah, there's no way to make it otherwise.
Yeah, I felt very lucky to be able to tag along. But
so that was the same show. Wasn't it the same show that Billy was on? We were flying people in. It was our 2010 .NET Rocks road trip.
The one we did was the 2012 tour, but yeah, it was the 2010 tour where Billy in San Diego. But that was always the thing, right? It was to bring guests that
this is a later one.
Ordinarily see, right? That was the fun part, and we had the budget for it, so we could afford to fly you down and have some fun together, and then and normally you're doing a user group, and it's like, hey, we brought Billy Hollis, right, or we brought Phil Haack. I mean, there's nobody on this panel that hasn't done a road trip stop with us.
Yep,
right.
That's right.
And I remember being.
But I did St. Louis, okay? And it was good. The Arch is good, but it's not SpaceX. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you don't always get the same tour.
I'm kind of with Kathleen. So, I think you guys need to do another one and make sure some of us get to go to these cool places.
All right. Yeah.
Underwritten by Magenic.
We can fly. Oh, no, we can't right now.
Oh, that's true.
We can't go anywhere. I'm not even done.
No, there's more to the story, Phil. Go.
Yeah, so I remember, so I'm always nervous before any speaking engagement. And this is one where we were going to be live in front of an audience. And so I got to ride in your big-ass RV to the spot from the hotel. And you were like, hey, we just drove through Kentucky, and we have some Kentucky bourbon. I don't know how many bottles, but there were a lot.
We went shopping.
So out of that, just a little bit, and I don't even remember what we talked, probably ASP.NBC or something, but that was quite fun.
Yeah. So, it wasn't just that we had some bourbon. It was that, if I remember, you were Chi-Town after a couple.
And then you went on stage.
I don't recall that at all. The one time that I do, speaking of bombing demos, the one time I do remember getting a little overindulgent. And not so much overindulgent, just we were in London for, I think it was NDC London, and we had some amazing scotch in the back, and I was jet lagged, and then I wanted to try some of your scotch right before my talk to kind of calm me down. I've since learned this is a mistake, and I don't do this anymore, but the combination of jet lag and having the whiskey, and the fact that I had not reset my demos properly, I think I had an error in my script that resets the demos, left my demos in a mixed beginning, middle state, so every demo failed. So I was just like hand waving, talking out of my ass, and I was like, I was talking about GitHub stuff, and that was probably the worst talk I've ever given. Every demo failed, but I was glad to be done, and the whiskey was really good.
And it wasn't just any whiskey. It was Aberlour Abuna, which Richard is drinking right now, which is cask strength, which means it'll poke your eye out, man. You got to be careful of that stuff.
Everything.
So,
I thought your favorite was Pappy.
We do like Pappy.
That's bourbon.
It is bourbon.
Yeah, okay. It is, and fair. It's also
a whole different
expensive.
Kathleen?
I was just going to say, if you decide to do a show that is people videotaping the worst thing that happened to them on stage, I might win. So, we can you can decide if we want to go there. But
Well, there's only one of
Presenting
us
is
on
hard.
broken her hip. So
I was
in a
not on
call,
stage when
on Teams, as I recall, on a call that
I
you're
was on
muted
Teams. I was not on. I was on Teams. Unfortunately, both my camera and my mic were off, so that did not help me get help. Because for those of you that don't know, when I broke my hip, I was not able to do very much, and I had actually managed to scooch across the floor to where I was going to be able to yank my laptop by its cable off of. Hopefully, the magnet wouldn't come off of the desk. I had lowered the desk as far as it would go. And about then, my landlord, who had happily heard me fall, actually came over, and so then I was able to get help. But it was a stressful few moments, not knowing how I was going to get help, and actually being unable to scream. I couldn't scream.
Yeah, really, that's really interesting.
I couldn't scream. My body was not letting me. I could.
So you kind of wanted
but
that.
actually
you wanted
getting
that.
enough. Yeah.
You wanted that button that's like, I fall in and I can't get up, you know, the button.
Yeah.
Like,
my kids are threatening me. I don't have it. Yeah. But they want me to have a watch or something. But yeah, no, I was trying to decide whether I was going to try to get onto Gmail and get my kids, because I didn't have my phone. I didn't know where it was. Or whether I was actually going to break into the meeting and say, I don't know if I need 911, but maybe I do. I don't know how you respond to that in the middle of a business meeting at Microsoft. But, you know, it was, and I'm still traumatized by that meeting. I don't want to go to that meeting. It's like, all the rest of the meetings are fine, But that did not happen on stage.
The frame, only it's a broken hip.
Yeah, it's just like, by the way, I'm going to need some help here, you know.
Yeah.
It turned out I didn't need 911.
Try to talk.
Nice. That is from 1691. Which, by the way, of all the shows you've done, Kathleen, like you stepped into the breach on that show about the state of VB.net. Like at the end of that show, I just sort of said, like, I privately said to myself, like, Kathleen took one for the team there to just have the conversation about what's happening with VB.net.
You know, VB is important, and I do believe in it, and I'll take the flack for that. For the people that don't know, I'm a language designer now. It's part of what I do, and I work on C# and I work on VB. I don't work on F# because it doesn't need me, and so that's good. And I work on the CLI from a language perspective, and because of that, I'm very sorry for a lot of things, but we'll work on them. So that's I'm interested in languages, and VB is a beautiful language that is very good for people. So so I'll take a little heat for that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I have a theory about that, actually.
Okay.
That I think that different types of people respond to different kind of languages because whether they're spatial or more verbal, and VB appeals to people, I think, that are a little bit more verbal, that read very quickly and the words matter to them, and C# is more spatial, that you're putting the blocks of code with the braces and because I talked to C# developers about this back when I was purely in VB, and they really do see sort of things spatially in blocks, whereas for me, I'm interpreting things using the and this and that, which I find to be makes more sense to me. Now, if I'm right about that, you think about one of the implications of this, which is that going almost entirely to C family languages means that we are blocking a certain section of potential developers out, that they will not resonate with the languages that we give them. And I don't think that's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I agree with that. And I started with VB 3, and I remember that moving from there to C#. What? Carl?
Oh, I started with VB1.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying, excuse me.
No.
So I started with VB3, and I remember that was certainly much more attainable than C++, which somebody tried to throw in my face before that. And I was like, whoa, where do I begin? Like, what's a pointer? What's a null? You know, like it was impossible. So the thing, though, is that was up to VB6, the whole environment of how you code was easier. And then when you move to now .NET, it's a lot like C#. Like everything's the same, right? The MVC controllers, it's just the language is different. You know, the way you lay out a project, the startup, the host, the API setup, you know what I mean? It's now literally almost identical. So that chasm you're talking about, Billy, is still there now it's just the language might feel familiar, but you still have to learn all those other things. Whereas we had a whole framework that was easier. And then take it back a step even before that, people like my dad that loved to do Access. Access had an audience. Access is a good thing for forums and people that's all they need, and it went away. So that sort of a whole nother layer of simplicity that kind of went away when that was no longer maintained, I guess, right? So I feel like we've still lost something even with VB in its current state in that respect.
I have a comment that I have to inject this comment before we continue on. Michele, not only did you play around with C++, you excelled at it. Like, people don't necessarily know this about Michele, but before, you know, she was on .NET Rocks and stuff, she was writing books in C++. She's one of these brilliant people and this is why we love her so much.
Yeah.
Do I owe you anything for that? Thank you.
$5.
No, because
you never talk about it, but people don't know, so people don't know.
Yeah.
But what I did is C++ in the VB shell first. I started with VB, and then I had to make it do BitBlit. And, you know, I needed to go to Win32 libraries to make it do BitBlit. And then I met you when I was writing that animation book. And we actually met at a conference at a VBits, right? He made me want to speak at conferences because he was so fun. And I remember thinking, oh, that guy's cool. And then I was sitting in a bar, big surprise, you know, writing my book at a bar in a conference. And these guys come up and say, hey, what's your name? And I said, hey, I'm Michele. And what are you doing? I'm writing a book. Really? I write books. And then we start talking. So that was really fun because your friends were from Toronto, which is probably how we ended up getting to know each other because I was just fresh out of Toronto at the time, like pretty fresh, right? So that was like 1994, I think. I want to say.
And that's when I was doing a demo. I was the first person to use Visual Basic and Internet together in the same sentence in print. And so I was doing a talk on using the Internet in Visual Basic. And I was pulling data from like a GOES satellite. It updated every.
It was like a weather
or something. It was a weather radar, and you based on the query. Yeah, I mean it was Gopher. It was before HTTP. HTTP might have been in its early infancy, but anyway, so I pulled this image up and I showed people how to use it, and just for fun, I set it to my desktop, and it was in San Francisco. I'll never forget this. And it showed this enormous storm coming towards California. It was the size of California, and it was headed right to San Francisco. And I showed the picture, and I said, and this is live, like this was just 5 seconds ago. Boom, and everybody goes, ooh! And I go, I know, isn't that amazing? It's so cool. I know. And of course, there was like people are running out of the talk, like, oh my God.
No, but the best part was before you did the demo, before you hit the button, the thing that I remember, and this is what made me think, wow, that guy's really funny, is he goes, so I'm going to do this demo and it's going to work. And then he pauses and he's waiting and then it worked. And then everybody ran out.
Yeah, because at the time I was used to writing code for like COM port communication, which was terrible, absolutely terrible. And now you're 7 layers higher, just making requests and guaranteed to get responses. It's like brilliant, you know? And so that's why I was so happy when I discovered sockets and TCP, because I had been doing like COM port programming, which sucked. You want to talk about errors, problems. Billy, you're nodding your head. All you guys are nodding your heads.
I started writing
unstable code like that. How do you tell the audience this might fail? Right? Like I think that's what Michelle's actually talking about, is the way you dealt with the fact this is probably going to blow up in my face, was that sort of optimistic statement of this is going to work.
It's going to work.
And then you just hold it there. And if it works, you're amazing.
That same kind of serial programming back in the 80s on character basic at the time. And trying to demo or show it when you basically what you've got is a message pump that you've got to have an entire asynchronous architecture just to capture everything. And now you can't predict exactly what's going to happen, and you can't explain it to the people who at that time had never heard of it.
This show's turning into the .NET Dinosaur rocks.
I was going to say, there's one thing about when we're looking at folks that have been on for a long time, we've all seen some stuff, haven't we?
Yeah. But we should talk about Blazor, because Blazor is going to transform the world.
I totally agree, Rocky. I'm there with you, man.
Hey, wait, show of hands. Who has coded Blazor already? Who's on this show right now?
Well, that would be me and Carl and Richard and Billy.
Oh, yeah. I'm excited.
I don't think Tim had his hand up. He's leaning on his chin there, so I don't think that counts.
Tim has fished in the Blazor River.
I started programming on non-graphical interfaces. My C++ was IBM assembler. When I got to Win32, it was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Who would do this?
But Blazor solves all that. Blazor solves everything. Yeah. Blazor solves absolutely everything.
Well, now there's a native container host in Kubernetes that hosts WebAssembly. It's not Blazor exactly, but it hosts WebAssembly using some other technologies. So it's a non-UI expression of that common assembly language. So, I mean, it's true, right? Tim can go write his ancient C++ assembly code and run it somewhere, and then Billy can go create the most beautiful UI, and it's all going to run in WebAssembly with .NET.
And I'm hoping, I don't think they're quite there, the dots are not fully connected, but the Project Mercury folks may get to a point that you can do VB in that too.
No.
Oh, I hope so.
We did that show.
Yeah, so that won't be us. We're not going that direction. Microsoft is not going that direction. But the Project Mercury folks are going a direction where they may have that. And I'm super excited. It won't necessarily have Razor, and that's what people kind of want. But being able to do like Tim's, 1980 stuff. Yeah, that should be all right. That in VB. What?
80.
Am I
go back to the 70s.
I don't talk about the 70s. I don't know most of it. What about you?
Yeah, professional programming in the 70s. Absolutely. Yeah, you too, huh, Richard? Yeah.
I don't talk. No, if I did it, that would make me too old. And I know I'm the oldest person on this show, so I'm not going to say anything.
I think I had you beat by a year.
Oh, Billy might have me beat. Billy has me beat by a couple of months, I think. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay, Billy, you can be the oldest. I'm so happy.
Yeah. I'm kind of used to being the oldest guy in the room.
Is it like a contest?
Yeah.
I don't know. We're just like, give it away.
I want to play this contest.
The game is the youngest in the room. I think it's Phil.
So time span size matters? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I was a child in the 70s. Definitely.
I think Phil, the statement Carl, is blank. Like, they do like blank size matters. So put whatever you want under blank. Size matters.
Phil, I have kids older than you, and you stay away from my daughter.
Don't worry, I'm happily married. I think, my first computer was a Trash 80, so I did do some basic programming in the 70s, like maybe the very last year of the 70s.
Urethane Model 1.
Not professionally.
August 1977. Why do I know that? Because I don't have a choice.
Why do you know anything that you know?
Because I don't have a choice.
Why does Richard know so many things?
Yeah, because I don't get
a good question, Michelle.
Not Albert.
Yeah.
Well, didn't they open the show discussing how Richard's head is probably really bigger than Carl's in real life? And I think it's because he needs all that room in there for all this stuff he knows.
For that massive brain.
He's a regular Tyrion Lannister, right? He drinks wine and he knows things, but switch wine with whiskey.
And I know.
I have a T-shirt that says that.
Richard.
Nice. But there have been a few Zoom calls over the past few months where I've gotten sufficiently impaired to start running lists, and Carl's seen this. Like, it's not really a good thing. Like, it's basically flow of consciousness. Like, you want to know what's going on in my head? It's literally lists of things. And
Let me relate them to you.
Yes, here we go.
How much time do you have?
Let us talk about all the American Mars missions in chronological order. Right? Like that's
we did that.
But is it a linked list?
Apparently it is.
Can you go back and forward?
Yeah. Is it B-tree?
Cardinality is irrelevant.
Well, I think this is a good precedent to set for our Patreon account, which is at patreon.netrocks.com. We are streaming this live only to patrons, and we're going to continue to do that with other shows in the future. Not every show, because some people like their privacy, and some people don't look good at the time that we call them in the time of day, right? Some people are like, "Oh, it's 5 o'clock in the morning." No.
I don't think we dropped enough F-bombs for the Patreons, though.
Clearly.
I think I tried to contribute there, Phil.
Tim
just keep every word I say.
In the middle, they took care of that.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah, Tim made up for it. Michelle, you are at the top center of our screen. That means you are qualified to tell us a dirty joke.
Oh, wow.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I didn't ask you this ahead of time. This is
you should have told me ahead of time. I might
have
have to do recall on an oldie but a goodie, you know?
It wouldn't be bad. Wouldn't be bad.
It wouldn't be bad. Or should I just tell you punchlines and you figure out the joke? Find the episode. Let's play Find the Episode.
Chunks is my dog.
I quit drinking. Oh, here's a good one.
Most people
it ends
take
in
the camel
boobs.
into town to get girls.
Let's just name that show for the punchline. I think that's a good game. Yeah.
Because that was the barbecue.
Barbecue. All right. So drawing a blank, Michelle?
Oh, did you really want me to tell a joke?
Yeah. Got one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me think.
Ramp says, I paid for more F-bomb.
Does it have to have F-bombs? So this guy, hang on, I'm thinking.
There's
this guy's walking to a bar.
You making it up on the spot?
I'm not making it up. I'm trying to remember which one I want to tell and make sure I don't fuck it up.
I'm afraid not.
Huh?
I'm afraid not.
So,
I'm afraid not.
I'm afraid not. That's a short one.
There you go.
Okay, so this guy goes into a bar and he says, you know what, bartender, give me a drink. I had a really hard day. And the bartender says, okay, how about a shot of tequila? That'll do you. He goes, no, I'm not so much for tequila. He goes, look, I got this beautiful gold añejo. It's like 50 years old.
Great.
It's beautiful.
Good.
Have a shot of that. No, I can't drink tequila. When I drink tequila, bad things happen. He goes, okay, how about a margarita then? We'll soften it up. He goes, I don't think you're hearing what I'm saying. I cannot drink tequila. Like the last time I had anything with tequila in it, I blew Chunks. And he's like, everybody gets sick once in a while. It's no big deal. He goes, Chunks is my dog.
The first joke that Michelle ever told on .NET Rocks.
Fantastic.
The one we had to change our rating for.
Yep.
And all
No, didn't you get in trouble once because somebody had my show on in the car and their kid was there and they said, what the fuck? Well, they didn't say that. They said, what?
Yeah.
My kid was in the car. So now you have to bleep.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to
There'll be a lot
anyway.
of bleeps.
Then we
It's going to be a bleep show.
If you've been listening to Dot Net Rock for a while and you see an odd show, you know it's going to be bleeped.
I'm just wondering if it's like a good thing to be known for, like, you know, the one that had to be bleeped.
The joke is that
the one,
your correct career is so serious. There are times when you're not that serious. And they're generally on our show.
And then classy. Billy's over there with this beautiful office, very classy, you know.
Yeah, that's my sunroom that I turned into my office, and
it's beautiful.
I love it. Thank you. That plant behind me is 43 years old. I got it as a senior in college, and I've kept it alive. Now
this is what's behind me.
Yeah.
All right, that's a visual gag. You have to go to the YouTube if you want to watch it.
Yeah,
if you want to see it. Yeah. I have one more memory to share, and that is with Mr. Hollis. He basically contracted me to help him create, and this was back before people knew how to do all this stuff, to create some DVDs. You remember those?
Yes, DVDs. The Silverlight DVD.
The Silverlight Video How-To DVD, which had videos and it also had code on it. And he came to New London. And I don't know, a few months before he came, I thought it would be cool to get a real ficus tree or two and put them in the studio, you know, next to, you know, because it kind of livened things up. And along with ficus trees come fruit flies. So I had since moved the trees out because that was a nuisance, but the fruit flies remained. And so Billy was doing his voiceover and recording a screenshot. And all of a sudden I hear, he's gagging. I'm like, Billy, what's that? I tripped on a fucking fruit fly, man. That's all the fruit fly.
Wait, did he say fuck?
Oh, yeah.
I have been known to use salty language. I just don't do it very often.
No, not very often. With that accent, that's the best fruit fly ever.
That accent, yeah. Now, Michelle, if you want me to relieve you as being the only one, I'll tell a salty joke or two, particularly ones that my wife.
Do it now.
I tell redhead jokes because my wife is redhead and she enjoys redhead jokes. So, you know how you know when you satisfy a redhead? Mm-hmm. She unties you from the bed. Yeah, I know that's kind of related, actually. And her second favorite is you know the difference between a redhead and a bitch is? Not a damn thing, but you better not tell her that.
Okay. Wow. We're gonna hear from the Me Too movement.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say we're yeah.
All right, here's my redhead edition. These three redheads are walking through the forest, and one looks down and goes, "Look, it's deer tracks." And the other one says, No, you're wrong. Those are bear tracks. And the third one was about to speak when they got hit by the train.
You know, and I was just going to point out that I believe I have lived in more states than any of you while I have recorded .NET Rocks. I am a boring person compared to you and your crazy jokes.
You're a nice person, Kathleen. That's why.
You are, and brilliant. Yeah, it comes with
we're all at home and we're all fucking boring now.
Yeah.
I am really grateful. Yeah. I'm really grateful to have met all of you and to be able to interact and interview all of you and be human together, not just in a code way. I mean, that's all good and great, but it's also just fun to hang out. So thank you all for being with me. Michele Bustamante, Rocky Lhotka, Billy Hollis, Kathleen Dollard, Tim Huckaby, Phil Haack, of course, my buddy Richard Campbell. We've done 1,700 shows. We've done 1,600 of them together. Oh my God, what is the time go? Thank you all, and we'll see you next time on .NET Rocks. Woo! Woo!
That's a take.
Yeah.